Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I've been drawn into some of your online content. There's a ton of it on a ton of different platforms. What first got me pulled in was some of the stuff for Eight Sleep and for Levels, a couple of health-oriented products that I've been using. Well, Eight Sleep actually I haven't had the opportunity to use yet, but I talked to Mateo on the podcast. But you've got like 2 million plus, I think 2.5 million followers on Twitter, a ton of followers on YouTube, and you've built quite the digital brand. I don't even know quite how to introduce you. You do music, you do comedy, you do fitness. But regardless, it's great to have you on today.
Heck yeah, thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's really cool that you got to talk to Mateo and then Josh too at Levels, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm actually talking to, I know one of the other ones that you use is Aura. I'm
Yeah.
talking to their CEO about a month from now.
Ooh, I'm
So
jealous.
yeah, I wish I had talked to him before I got the ring. Then I maybe could have gotten a little bit of a discount or something like that. But either way, these are some really cool companies, and I'm looking forward to digging in on them.
Yeah.
Before we get into that type of stuff, though, would love to hear like your story just from the beginning. I don't know a whole lot except for that you started figure skating and dancing when you were 2 years old, and I know a lot about what you're doing today, but some of the stuff in between is a little blurry.
Yeah, I guess the figure skating and dancing at a young age was the beginning of me saying, "Hey, look at me." And then my career has just been that up until now. But yeah, I was a musician to start out and started putting my stuff online, and it was very clear that like that was the direction to go, that to get exposure, that I sort of shied away from touring, although I have toured the US with my show, um, which I was playing live and really boring. It was like hard to get people to come to shows because I'm just some average white chick strumming a guitar in a cafe. And so I wanted to make it more fun. I wanted to make marketing my shows easier. So I turned it into a drinking game, and that's kind of what got me started. Is that then I had this sort of gimmick that made me stand out from the crowd, and when I put that online, it was that's how I sort of started growing a following, and then leaned into the online kind of thing.
I was just gonna say when you started, it was like traditional music you're talking about,
Yeah, yeah, I was an independent artist.
right? And then you kind of found your niche was, I think it was the power hour type stuff that you started doing, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And then so you found that, and how did it go from you were just kind of getting at it, but from that to some of the more outrageous stuff? It sounds like you started pretty not outrageous. You joked about like attention on me with the figure skating and the dancing, but being an independent musician is not like a super glamorous gig, or it's pretty heartfelt, I'd say. And then you moved on to just doing a lot of crazy stuff on the internet, but still maintaining, I think, like that, uh, purpose to like make people happy and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is the goal. I just want to make cool stuff that entertains. And if it's music or a vlog or what you call crazy stuff, which is just trying to be unique. The first thing I did was make my show remarkable, right? Like I call it a gimmick, but really it was a way to say like, no, this is how I'm different from all these independent artists. Why I deserve your attention, why you should follow me instead of just the average girl strumming a guitar. And so I try and do that now with every aspect of what I'm doing. Just be different.
I think that's a good motto, and I certainly don't really know anyone else who's too similar. So I think you're doing a great job.
I don't know. I think it's causing problems for me, honestly. Like, a part of my career is pleasing algorithms. And when the computer can't make sense of what I'm doing, I mean, you couldn't even make sense of what I'm doing in the intro. So, how is then machine learning going to put me in a category and show me with other people doing the same thing to audiences that like what I'm doing? If it's too crazy, I end up, giving the algorithm too much trouble and I don't get served to my audience, which is something I struggle with. But then on the other half, I'm just like, I'll just keep doing what I want that is super weird and makes me happy.
That's actually a really good point. And I could totally sympathize. Like I'm doing what I'm doing now. I'm just getting kind of started this year, just a few months ago with the podcast, and been writing some on a blog for almost a year now. And I intentionally, like, I'm basically like anti-algorithm for better or worse. I like don't, it's very hard to categorize some of the stuff. And like, yes, I have some podcast guests who are like in crypto, but then I have like some health oriented and some general like investing guests. And I just had Blau on last week, who's like a famous DJ. And it's like all over the map, and it's tough, I think, for the algorithm. But at the same time, like for you, I think there's certain people, and it's obviously you've accumulated this following over time. There's certain people who that eclectic mix of things that you do are exactly kind of what they're looking for. And then you can build like a really strong, it might be harder for them to find you, and the algorithms might mess it up. And like, yeah, that's all super important. But when they do find you, do you think that it's like a stronger connection sometimes?
Yeah, I hope that that is the case. It is tough to grow an audience, like just based on my personality, because, part of my audience is there because they lost weight seeing one of my videos and getting motivated, and the other part is like, oh, I just like her music, or some people aren't even like actually hate the music parts and only watch the things where I'm vlogging some crazy project. So it's tough to have that audience that isn't so specific, but I'm hoping that then it becomes that they're there for my personality in general, and that it's okay that I'm doing whatever I feel like at the moment, because it's more like we're friends and they just want to hang out with me and my interests.
So speaking of like your interests and just doing what you do, whatever you want to do, which I mean, like for people listening, like that sounds awesome to me. That's what I'm kind of trying to enable myself to do. And you got to build financial independence to a certain degree. But if you can just do whatever you want to do for the rest of your life, that's like a pretty ideal formula, right? So
Yeah.
what I'd like to hear from you is like how that's evolved over time. I don't know if you have any, like, I think it's pretty hard to look in the future and like project how that might evolve, but at least for the past, like you said, you started pretty much, it sounded like, a regular, for lack of a better word, like independent musician. And now you've added like all these different interests, and I don't know if the right term is like body hacking. I would actually kind of like your opinion on that, because I'm new to this stuff and I'm doing like the levels and the aura. I don't know if that's body hacking, if there's a better word for it, but your interests have certainly grown over time. Would love to hear like kind of how that evolution took place.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was like on a dating site where it's like, what are some of your hobbies? And then I like looked up the definition of hobbies, and it's something you're interested in that you do that you don't get paid for. And then I realized I don't have any hobbies, because every time I have a hobby, something that I'm interested in, like biohacking, I then, started a fitness channel, and now I do a bunch of biohacking, and that is my job. And so yeah, it just becomes all encompassing. Like, I want to share what I'm doing, and hopefully people want to check it out. So I just end up turning all of my interests into my work.
So another thing I want to talk about is like, building this brand that you've built. I'm assuming like at this point it's pretty sustainable to live off of.
Yeah, I've been a creator full time now for like 5 years, so I feel very lucky.
And what was it like in the early days?
What, when I was first starting out? I mean, I had a full time job, so I say that I was like a creator from 5 to 9, and then I worked from 9 to 5. So any time that I could make to, do my online creation endeavors, I would get to that after my work, and it got to a point where it was like clear that I needed to dedicate all my time towards the online business, and so then I just took the leap and was doing that for about a year, and then moved to LA, which also made a big difference. I had no idea how much being around people that do similar things was important. Now it's kind of weird because, I mean, I'm talking to you on Zoom, and it seems like being in LA isn't that big of a deal, and there are a lot of like people moving out because there are no events to go to, and it costs so much to live here. But at the time when I moved to LA, it was a big change for my career just to go to events in LA and see other people that do what I do, because I spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh not being around any of that and not even realizing that this was like a sustainable kind of thing and that there are people doing it just like me.
Yeah, so you kind of hinted at it, but is that something where like the advantages, obviously like you're at a different stage of your life right now, but the advantages of LA versus, Pittsburgh or for that matter really anywhere have kind of, at least for the time being, it's not the same.
You mean like in terms of it's not so useful now because of COVID, or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Because when I moved here, it was huge to be able to go. There are a lot of networking events, and it always seems like a very small community, and we're all going to these just things. I run into people, the same people, and we're all doing the same kind of thing and working together. And that doesn't happen anymore because nobody is gathering. So it is a little different, but before COVID, it really was important for me to be here. And I didn't believe that before I moved. I was like, my first TED talk is going to be about how the world is globalized through the internet and you don't need to be anywhere and you can build a business and you'd never have to move. And I was completely wrong. Like, it did really make a difference moving here. And I think it's temporary. Like, of course, we'll get to a point where we'll be back gathering again. And so that's why I haven't just exodused out of LA.
yeah. That all makes sense, and like obviously it's extremely helpful like in the early days to kind of hit your stride. But now that you've kind of been established and like you've been doing this for 5 years, has it crossed your mind like the possibility of or like the idea to, I don't know, travel more or move somewhere else, anything like that, or you love LA kind of regardless? I mean, I can't
Yeah.
blame you.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yeah, there are some creators that are like, well, you can work from anywhere. I know there's like a big YouTube community in Utah, and a friend of mine runs like a community out in New York, or you can just like run a channel from anywhere. That being said, I don't think that works specifically for me or the traveling aspect. Um, because what I do relies heavily on music and my studio and being in a space where I can hear my monitors and use my piano. I'm not like other creators that I can, video edit and shoot from anywhere. And so I do rely heavily on like being in my own space and having that to create things. And so it is tough when I can't just like take a vacation and work remotely, specifically because of the way my content is.
True. And you've kept up like a pretty reliable cadence. Is that something where like you do turn off from time to time, or you've been pretty consistent over the years?
I cannot recall a time when I have turned off for in the past like decade. Yeah, it's nonstop. I mean, it's weekends, it's over holidays. There are videos on my channel where I'm like filming my mother on Christmas Day, and she's like, "Are you serious right now?" it's, I mean, I always work to try and batch shoot and get ahead, but it just seems like I am somewhat on a hamster wheel, and I do blame myself sometimes for not being better at streamlining or outsourcing, and I'm working on it. But it really truly is like never an off button, and I also feel like that's um, a hallmark of being type A, and this new like gig world that we live in, the gig economy where people are working for themselves. I feel like a lot of people out there can relate to this, where you never feel like you've done enough because you're not clocking out. You are the boss. And so you work until dinner and then finish dinner, and why not open your laptop again? Are you going to get more done, or are you going to give up? And so I do struggle with that, and I know it's not healthy, and I'm working on being able to shut off and clock out.
Yeah, it's a really interesting issue that you bring up. I'm like very new to getting acclimated with it myself. Like had a very normal, well, not even normal. I had a job that I worked like 80 hours a week up until like a year ago, and then quit. And I've been managing my own time for the last year or so. And so I can sympathize like exactly with what you're saying that, and you're probably a lot busier than me. But as I'm building, I've been conscious of the fact of like, I don't want to get in a situation where I'm kind of, held accountable to my audience or whatever it might be for a certain cadence, that is something that I wouldn't want to maintain over the long term because, uh, like you said, it's tough to kind of jump off of that. I'm curious, like, what do you think and, I don't know if this is like too much, but what do you think would happen? Like if you just like took a week and went to Mexico and just hung out?
Well, wait, I want to talk about you. You went 80 hours a week now and you're working for yourself. That's crazy cool.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, it was a big decision for me, but realistically, like, so I was in investment banking and people who listen probably figured that out by now. And just for a couple of years out of college and then, was fortunate to make enough money that I could substantiate myself for at least a few months, I thought. And then COVID hit and that turned into a year plus. And, it was kind of, for me, like, I believe in like looking at everything that happens and treating it as happening for you rather than kind of to you. And so COVID, I had to move out of New York and all my friends moved out of New York. And so cheaper cost of living and like the opportunity to extend this period of kind of doing whatever I wanted. So I started the podcast and it's been a lot of fun. And I don't know if it's going to last forever. I might need to get another job soon, but it's been a lot of fun. And I think that, I wouldn't, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like, even though I am working a lot, like at least I'm doing what I want to do, or at least like I'm doing what I signed up for. And it's a lot better that way for me than just, I was taking orders basically 8 hours a week before. So no matter how hard the work is, I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it never feels like work. There's a reason why I don't shut off, and it's because it's so enjoying and enjoyable and fulfilling to do. Like when I finish a video, it's so satisfying. Of course, I need to immediately start on the next one, or halfway through this one, already started on the next one. But yeah, it doesn't feel like work. And so I totally get what you're saying. Although when I did have like a 9 to 5 job, I loved that too. I was lucky. I think it's just I like making stuff and I'm just never not going to be outputting.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that like you're a super positive person. Like I try to share that trait. And so like when I was working hard in a, more regular job, you look at the bright sides of that too. All you have to do is sit at your desk and you make money and then you go out and spend it on the weekend and have fun. And, there's pros and cons to both sides, but I think you said it well. Like when you're doing some of the work that you're doing, the reason you haven't turned off is you're enjoying a lot of it. And there's definitely like a deeper sense of, um, you know, like a life's mission, life's purpose, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. Like when you're doing these things that you kind of choose to do and that you think you're best at. So that's kind of how I feel about it, at least.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, but like the life submission thing all ties into that feeling of can you do more? Did you do enough? So it all feels great and maybe unhealthy at the same time. It's like double-edged sword.
So I'm going to segue that you talked about, not knowing when to shut off at night. I'm going to segue that into talking about sleep and eight sleep and aura
Okay.
and some of these health related tools or just practices and habits that you're working on and using. So like, part of shutting off, I think for me, it's like super hard too. But if you really, really come to believe in the benefits of sleep, and like reading a book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep recently really helped me. And, it's kind of fresh in mind. So, the impact might wear off, but really helped me prioritize like actually getting in bed at like 10:30, which is like pretty, if I told myself that a year and a half ago, I would have been like, you got to be crazy. I was like leaving the office at 11. But
Wow.
how do you think about sleep? Does that factor into your decisions when it comes to turning off at all? Like, how do you think about sleep today? And then we can get into like how you're actually using the different products.
Yeah. Also, I just wrote down Why We Sleep in my books to read checklist. Thank you for the suggestion. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so I have like sections of life prioritized, and number one is work and creating stuff and getting things out there. The second would be sleep. The third would be working out, and fourth would be social life. And so I only really have room for 3 of those at any given time. So I have no social life. We'll just throw that out because it's number 4. And then I have work, sleep, and working out. And then when work starts to get rough, that cuts into my working out. I will not let it cut into my sleep. That goes first. And then if work gets really bad, then yes, it will still take top priority and I'll start sleeping less. But I do my best to not let that cut into my top 2 priorities and just keep work as hard as I can and sleep as hard as I can as the most important things.
And is
But
that
I will
like
say that work is still above sleeping at some point when I have a deadline that I really need to hit. Example, I just finished a Halloween video, and if that didn't get out before Halloween, well, then what a waste of time. So I did cut into my 8 hours every night.
Yeah, it's tough. I heard like someone wrote something somewhere that I read that was like it can always wait until, the next morning, but it's like not really,
Nope.
if you have a Halloween video and you need to get it out for Halloween, like yes, like it's not life or death, but like everyone has their priorities and it's kind of silly to diminish them in that way, I think. But for me, it's I'm starting to try to focus at, it sounds like you prioritize sleep really highly and in that number 2 slot. Like I'm just kind of getting used to this. I can't even say that it's necessarily number 2, maybe for the last few weeks, literally.
Yeah. Well,
But
good for you. I believe in you. You can move it up.
yeah, I'm trying. Well, the Aura ring is telling me I'm not too every day I wake up, it's like, yeah, you didn't sleep that well and you're not that ready for the day, but good luck. And I'm like,
Good
oh,
luck.
okay.
Uh,
So I'm working on it. But I think a big part of it for me has been like giving myself the opportunity to sleep. Like a lot of times it just comes down to I consider myself like more of a morning person. So I'll, go, even if I go to sleep at like 11, wake up at, I'll wake up naturally at 7:30, or like that's actually 8.5 hours still. I'll wake up naturally at like call it 7. And just deciding to go back to sleep is like pretty against a lot of genes in my body.
yeah.
But probably the right thing to do. Like, cause if you're only in bed for 8 hours, you're not going to get 8 hours of sleep. Right.
Right. Yeah, and that's a recent change too because of my Aura ring and looking at Whoop and this new mattress that I'm trying out. Like, I used to think that like being in bed 7 to 8 hours was sufficient, but now I'm realizing that no, it's about how efficient are you at using that time when you are asleep. And so I'm now giving myself 9 in bed hours, which hopefully equates to at least 8 actually unconscious.
Right. So I'm a little more familiar with Aura from like having used it myself.
Hmm.
The main way I use it is I just like wake up and, check the scores it gives you a sleep score and a readiness score. And there's also a pretty cool like tracking of like when you were awake or in REM or in deep sleep, for those who haven't had the opportunity to use one. And there's also one more feature that I've used that is like a rest feature where you during the day can do like a meditation or a nap or whatever you want to call it. They call it a rest, and you basically put on a timer and do whatever you do during those times. Is there anything that I'm missing like that you found useful, or just generally like how do you integrate that with kind of what you do?
Yeah, I don't actually use the rest feature, but I don't know. I'm not much of a napper. I'm more trying to be as efficient as possible, just like in the time that I give at night. But yeah, that's basically what I do. I wake up, I look at my numbers. I'm putting more emphasis on how I feel these days because I'm tracking with Aura, Whoop, and 8 Sleep, and they all give me HRV, and they all are not just different in what number they're giving me because that's understandable, but sometimes they trend differently too. So sometimes my mattress will say like be heading downward, and I'll be thinking that the past few nights haven't been that great, but then Aura will go in the opposite direction. And so I'm trying to take all of this with a grain of salt. This HRV thing is very new, and it seems like the level of detail you need to get that reading is pretty intense for something strapped on your wrist. So I know it'll get better as the years progress and more people care about this kind of thing and they improve the technology. But that's just to say that I also go on my intuitive feeling now as well.
Yeah, that's super insightful actually, because you do have these different tools you're using more than a lot of people, I think, or certainly more than anyone who doesn't have any, and they're just thinking about like which one should I use to get started. Putting like full faith in any of them probably isn't the move. But with like with the aura, you talked about the aura and like the heart rate variability, but the levels comes from like a completely different angle. And this was, as you said, like the conversation I had with Josh Clemente, um, one of the founders. Levels is tracking like a totally different thing that you probably can't cross compare as far as I'm aware. And that's like metabolic health and your blood sugar. How have you used that one today? And is that something where again you're kind of taking it with a grain of salt, or have you used that to make a lot of actual like changes in the way you're living?
Yeah, I mean, levels has been life changing, and I mean, I again say like take it with a grain of salt in the sense that none of these technologies are perfect, and you shouldn't just like bank your whole life and self-worth on what your fasting glucose is at this moment because it could be off either direction. But in general, like this levels made such a huge difference for me in the same way that someone who hasn't even thought about HRV gets an Aura ring and then starts actually dedicating time for bed the way they should. And so that's what levels is, because I never had this metabolic data unlocked. I'd never even done like glucose prick test or checked my ketones before. And so all of this stuff is going on with my metabolism that I didn't know about. And then to be able to see that even if it isn't, exactly on as I compare it now to my blood glucose occasionally to see, how close they are. Both of those measurements aren't exact, but it's just helpful to know the big picture and really see a connection between what I'm eating, what I'm doing, my stress levels, my sleep levels, and how that impacts my metabolism so much. And it's not, you can't see any of that without levels.
So I understand like you're pretty big on a couple of like macro things like fasting for one and keto diet for two. Correct me if I'm wrong on either, but if not, would love to hear like how you incorporate those, or how they might have changed with having levels, or some other information that you've gained.
Yeah, you're right. I do love fasting. And I actually do not follow the keto diet, but I work on allowing my body to get into ketosis. And so I do eat like a ton of carbs, and that's very counter to the keto diet, but I still want to be able to burn fat. And so levels has helped me with that, just to see at the end of my fast if I'm getting my glucose levels down enough so that my fat burning can kick in. It also levels helped me realize that I should be basically carb cycling, which I wasn't doing. I was eating about the same amount of carbs on a day where I lifted heavy as a day when I maybe walked a lot or rested completely. And now I'm realizing that, yeah, those heavy lifting days, I do need those carbs, and my metabolism will just power through them because I can see on the graph that my energy levels are staying, or my blood glucose is staying nice and level. My energy is sustained. And then on those other days, if I eat those carbs, I don't need it. And so I'm getting big spikes, and I stick more to a fat related diet. Yeah, you could even say that I'm kind of keto on the days when I'm not working out. And then when I do work out, it's just pasta, lots of pasta.
I like the sound of that diet. I'm in the middle of, I did several months actually of I have my own issues, so I do I can't like come to terms with the idea of doing like a really strict diet just in perpetuity. So I try to do like a 5 and 2 where I do something during the week, and then, Friday night I kind of let
Beer.
loose.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
solid.
And and so I did like a few to several months of just going really hardcore, doing vegan and gluten free during the week, and
Oh,
intermittent
dang.
fasting as
All at
well.
once?
Yeah, so I've and I still do the fasting pretty much 5 days a week from like whenever I finish dinner or dessert or whatever, like 7 or 8 to, in the afternoon. I've actually recently with levels, I think just it's made me want to, I'm only a few weeks in, it's made me want to test certain things naturally. And so like I've been trying to do actually just one meal a day pretty
Yeah, that's what
recently.
I
And
do. OMAD.
oh, that is what you do?
Yeah, I love it.
So when did you get started on that? Like how was that? Because I've been doing I haven't eaten breakfast in a long time. I love breakfast on weekends, but on weekdays I don't eat breakfast really ever. And that pretty much,
Nice.
if you don't eat late at night, that takes care of the fast pretty much for like
Sure.
16, 18 hours, whatever it is. When did you
Yeah,
start
yeah,
pushing
yeah.
to just the one meal?
I was doing 16/8 just like you, and then I started messing around with working out at the end of my fast to capitalize on my low glucose levels and get into fat burning. I was really enjoying that, and I did that for a couple of years. It was easy. Like I didn't force anything with that skipping breakfast thing. I was always naturally like forcing myself to eat breakfast because it's the most important meal of the day. Ugh, which is
Very bad advice.
yeah, I know. And just when someone told me that doesn't have to be true, it like blew my mind. And I think that was probably the beginning of my biohacking because I was like, wait, I've been lied to and now I can figure it out for myself. This is amazing. So yeah, I enjoyed doing the 16/8 for a while. And then I started working out later and later in the day, breaking my fast after my workout. And then I switched gyms and it was even later. And then like I was trying to avoid LA traffic. And so then it ended up I started working out at 6 p.m., breaking my fast at 8, all of my calories, like 2,200 in a sitting, and then go to bed, and then wake up and not eat and just work all day, and then do the same thing again. I will say that like Levels has taught me that eating that much that close to sleep is not smart, and I should move my OMAD, my one meal a day earlier, but I'm working on it. It's another lever that I need to commit myself to pulling.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I have a few questions. One of which was going to be having a large meal at 8 and then like going to sleep shortly after. To me, sounds like it could have some, if nothing else, so just like I don't know if I'd be able to sleep. I feel kind of bloated after like a big meal like that or whatever. But more interestingly, like what are you eating that you can? Because I've actually had trouble with this. Like I'm a big guy, 6'3", like 200 pounds. I don't know what I can eat in one meal really, because you get full of like the content of whatever you're eating. What do you eat to get like a 2,000 calorie meal and that's not like awful for you? Just eating like lava cakes and popcorn.
Word. Yeah. Wait, what was the first part? Oh, the about falling asleep after eating a big meal. So I actually got this from Dave Asprey, who another biohacker that everyone's heard of course. But he would talk about how he would have fruit after his dinner, like he would like allow himself those carbs because it would sort of kick his body into being sleepy and so I experimented with that, and yeah, it seems that just like my big meal helps knock me out versus keeping me up and bloated. Although I will say my heart rate stays up longer on like a heavy carb meal before I go to sleep. And so that is affecting my rest. And even Aura will show me, my heart rate, it doesn't get down low enough until like halfway through my night. So I do sleep better. Actually, the best sleep I get is when I do 24, 48-hour fasts. It's so efficient and I wake up feeling so refreshed. So I am learning from all this data that digesting well unconscious is not good for me, but it's just been tough with my work schedule to try and stop doing that. And then,
Go ahead.
oh, do you want me to answer the second part, what I
Yeah,
eat?
yeah. I really actually want to hear the answer to the meal question.
Sure. So I'm sitting on my computer and I have my macro data here. I I have it's kind of like my Fitness Pal, but I programmed it myself within a spreadsheet, so I have granular control over it, and it actually spits out how many beers I can have if I want to, whatever, based on what I ate in the morning. But the
Very
point,
useful tool, it sounds like.
yeah, I'm trying to turn this into an app actually, but for now it's just programmed for myself, and I'm looking at what I ate yesterday. So I didn't do too hard of a workout because it was only upper body, so I didn't get my full body in or my legs. So my carbs were at 190, which would have been like if I really go hard, I bump that up to like 290. So this is a medium carb meal, I guess. After a workout, I had 2 servings of ground turkey, 4 eggs, 4 egg whites, an avocado, 4 servings of Brussels sprouts, 4 servings of green beans. All of that had olive oil on it, tablespoon. And then 3 servings of pasta with olive oil, another tablespoon. So that all adds up to 2,100 calories.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, broken up a little bit. I had like the turkey, then took a shower, and then made all the rest of it. The pasta was last. As I've learned from levels, I like to front load my meals with the protein and fat, because as my body's processing that, it'll slow down the processing of that pasta and make my spikes lower.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've realized too. Like if I eat something that seems really like I had a smoothie that I eat all the time, or I drink all the time that seems really healthy. It's like vegetables and frozen fruit and banana and all healthy stuff. And I went and drank that to break my fast, and then turns out like it's actually like spiking the hell out of my glucose.
Mm-hmm.
Because I probably didn't. I should probably put like nuts or something like that. I'm still very early days, but and it sounds like you have a bit more of a sophisticated plan than I do, but it's something that I'm learning, and it's been fun. Like there's a happy medium between spending like a long and healthy life just worrying about how to be healthy and live a long life versus spending enough time on it and getting some like really nice systems in place, like fasting or whatever it is, or learning these insights about like how to eat a healthier meal and then implementing them, and hopefully like at some point being able to be a little bit more automatic and not thinking too much about all these things.
Yes, I love the automatic. I love the idea of making habits and just like optimizing and then setting it and letting it handle it itself so that I can focus on other things. I mean, I basically eat that, what I just read off to you, the same thing every night. There are a little bit of changes that I make based on, what my workout was. But otherwise, like, it is all just a formula. I just plug in and get the answer. And that takes away 0 of my decision making efforts, which then can go towards my work or my creative endeavors. And my favorite part of optimizing is then just knowing that it's working and not having to give any thought to it.
So last question, now that we've gone down the rabbit hole on health a little bit, what haven't we hit on that is something that you either are doing every day, or just something that might be totally outside the realm of what we're talking about, or even something related that we just didn't touch on?
I'm trying to think what else do I obsess about daily? I mean, practicing music is something definitely I want to get back into in terms of making habits. I just recently, this is news. I haven't even told my audience yet. I just ordered a baby grand piano for my new place. And so I'm hoping that that will be a part of the setting it and knowing it's working, and just making a habit of an hour a day or so, just, keeping up with those skills.
That's awesome. I know you're a bit of a one woman band, so the mini piano, or the baby, what is it called? Baby
A
grand
baby
piano?
grand, yeah.
Is that a common term that I should know?
Yeah, I mean, not that you should know it, but it just means like it's one of the big old things, but like a little smaller than what you would see in an orchestra. It just looks impressive, but they're tinier.
Right. Now, if you could just call it, if you called it a grand, you could have fooled me and
Yeah.
probably your audience, but baby might be funnier. So
I'll
either
just
way.
get, yeah, like a close-up lens so it fills the screen whenever I film it and make it seem bigger.
Exactly. Well, Ali, I know we're coming up on time. It's been a lot of fun talking with you about all these things, and I've actually learned a lot that I'm looking forward to going back and testing, on myself. But thanks so much for taking the time. I want to give you the last word to talk about anything that we didn't touch on, or just tell people where to find some of your content. But thanks again, and looking forward to following along your journey as you continue to do what you love.
Yeah, thanks. It was awesome talking with you. And yeah, if anybody wants to find me, my name's Ali Spagnola. You can just Google that. I have stuff in a bunch of different places. There's probably my YouTube fitness channel is what your audience would most be interested in. So yeah, thanks.